Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever found yourself wrestling with financial decisions? Maybe feeling that nagging stress or just, I don't know, a general confusion about money, even when you're trying to do all the right things.
Like you're following the rules, but something's still off.
Exactly. Perhaps you're striving for that, elusive sense of financial security,
Mm.
but the path ahead feels cluttered with dense jargon, complex formulas, advice that just doesn't quite resonate with your lived experience.
Yeah, it often feels disconnected from real life, doesn't it?
For so long, the prevailing wisdom has told us that financial success is primarily about mastering the numbers, right? Pinpointing the perfect investment strategy, or, I don't know, dissecting obscure economic
The
theories.
technical stuff. Right.
But what if that perspective is fundamentally incomplete? What if we've been looking at the whole picture through, well, the wrong lens?
And what's truly fascinating here, and what our deep dive today will explore, is this kind of revolutionary idea that the genuine drivers of financial outcomes might actually have very little to do with intelligence or formal education or even advanced financial literacy.
Really? So not about being a math whiz.
Not primarily, no. Instead, they have far more to do with a much more challenging yet ultimately more influential aspect of our being,
Yeah.
how we actually behave when confronted with money.
How we behave, okay.
It's not about being that math wizard or an economics guru who can, predict market movements. It's about skillfully navigating the incredibly complex, often irrational landscape of human emotion and personal history and those deeply ingrained biases we all have when money is involved.
That sounds harder than calculus, actually.
It probably is. And this raises a truly profound question for all of us. If human behavior is the ultimate key to financial well-being, how do we even begin to master it? Or at the very least, understand it better in ourselves and, frankly, in others too.
And that's precisely the journey we're embarking on today. Our compass for this adventure, our primary source material for this deep dive, is a truly groundbreaking and refreshingly insightful book by Morgan Housel. It's titled The Psychology of Money, Timeless Lessons on Wealth, Greed, and Happiness.
Great book. Really shifts your perspective.
It really does. And let me be clear up front. This isn't your typical finance book. You won't find specific stock picks here or detailed budgeting templates or, complicated investment algorithms inside.
No magic formulas.
Nope. Instead, Housel offers something far more enduring, I think.
Our mission today, then, is to pull back the curtain and explore the profound, often surprising, and, sometimes utterly irrational ways we interact with money. We're going to try and uncover why our personal psychology, our unique life experiences, our inherited biases, why they are far, far more influential in achieving true financial well-being than, say, any amount of technical financial literacy or market foresight.
So it's the soft skills of money, almost.
You could put it that way, yeah. Think of this deep dive as your essential shortcut to understanding the human side of money. We're shifting the focus from impersonal spreadsheets and abstract economic models to the deeply personal, often messy, but ultimately controllable realm of self-awareness and behavioral understanding.
That sounds empowering.
It really is. It's about empowering you with insights that transcend market cycles and provide a foundation for lasting financial peace.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting and where House's core premise truly feels revolutionary. Financial success, he argues, isn't primarily about what your intelligence, your education, even your raw financial literacy, but profoundly about how you behave.
Yeah, let that sink in.
Right. Just pause for a moment and let that sink in. We spend years, sometimes decades, in school learning everything from calculus to literature, advanced physics to world history.
All the hard knowledge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yet for the vast majority of us, there's surprisingly little formal education on how to manage our own psychological impulses when it comes to the fundamental actions of, like, saving, spending, or investing.
It's kind of a blind spot in education, isn't it?
Totally. Housel emphasizes that good financial behavior is incredibly difficult to teach in a classroom setting, even to the most intellectually brilliant individuals. Yet he contends it's vastly, incomparably more important than sheer technical expertise.
It's the difference between knowing the theory and performing under pressure.
Yeah. It's the critical difference between knowing every single perfect chess move in theory and actually being able to execute those moves flawlessly under immense pressure against a wily, unpredictable opponent.
And in this case, the opponent is.
Well, the unpredictable forces of the market, sure, but maybe more powerfully, our own inner biases and emotions.
Right. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it really means we need a fundamental reorientation of our focus. Instead of obsessing over trying to predict complex market movements or mastering intricate financial formulas or chasing the latest investment fad,
Which is exhausting.
totally exhausting. We should be channeling our energy into the far more challenging, yet ultimately more impactful realm of human psychology.
Okay.
This premise powerfully underscores that our individual personal experiences, our deeply ingrained biases, the unique historical context we grew up in, our particular psychological makeup, all of this profoundly influences every single financial decision we make.
Every single one.
Pretty much. Often these influences operate in subtle ways we don't consciously recognize or, frankly, are even willing to admit to ourselves.
Oof, yeah.
And this insight fundamentally challenges the very definition of rationality that underpins so much of traditional finance.
How so?
Well, it suggests that what we often label as irrational financial behavior might, in fact, be entirely rational from an individual's unique subjective vantage point. Ah, okay. So it depends on where you're standing.
Exactly. It means that the perfect financial strategy, meticulously crafted on paper, might completely fall apart in real-world application because it utterly fails to account for the messy, unpredictable reality of human nature.
That leads us directly to one of the most crucial points Housel makes, which is this profound subjectivity of what constitutes rationality in the first place. What seems perfectly logical, sensible, even obvious to one person might appear utterly irrational, maybe even reckless, to another. And the key isn't about one person being smart and the other being dumb, right?
No, not at all. It's about them having entirely different lived experiences and, consequently, radically different reference points when it comes to money.
Okay, give us an example.
Sure. Housel provides an incredibly clear and relatable illustration. Consider someone who grew up experiencing genuine poverty or maybe severe financial insecurity. Their view of money will be drastically, fundamentally different from someone who grew up surrounded by abundant wealth. And this is regardless of their intelligence or how many degrees they hold. Right. Their starting point is just worlds apart.
Worlds apart. For the person who experienced scarcity, holding on to cash, maybe even foregoing potential investment gains, might feel like the safest, most rational choice.
Even if inflation is eating away at it.
Even then. Because from their perspective, this isn't irrational. It provides an immediate, tangible sense of security against a perceived threat of destitution they experienced firsthand. Their deep-seated aversion to debt, maybe, or their intense fear of losing money, might be forged in the crucible of their early life, a time when even small financial missteps had profound consequences.
Okay, that makes sense. And on the flip side, the wealthy upbringing.
Well, someone who grew up with abundant resources where wealth was simply a given might be far more comfortable taking significant risks. They might view market downturns not as catastrophic threats, but as, temporary opportunities.
Buy the dip.
Right, because they've never known anything else, potentially. They might be more inclined to leverage debt because their personal history tells them that, ultimately, things tend to work out. There's always a safety net, perhaps, always a way to recover.
They've essentially lived in different financial universes, haven't they?
Precisely. And these unique, deeply personal frames of reference don't just shape their risk tolerance, they permeate everything.
Like what?
From their daily spending habits. Do you buy in bulk even if it ties up cash, or do you prioritize convenience to their long-term saving strategies? Even their very definition of what financial success actually looks like.
So it really goes deep.
Very deep. Someone who saw their parents struggle through a major recession might be permanently scarred by that experience, making them overly cautious years later, even when current economic conditions are vastly different.
Okay.
Another person who maybe witnessed their family thrive during a dot-com boom might carry an almost unwarranted optimism into every new investment.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, as you navigate your own financial landscape?
Well, I think it means recognizing that your money story is deeply personal. It's profoundly shaped by your unique journey and experiences.
Yeah, that's okay.
That's not just okay, it's a fundamental truth.
Yeah.
There's no universal correct way to feel about money, no single perfectly rational decision that applies to everyone. Your rationality is your rationality born from your story.
Understanding this core premise, this subjectivity of financial perception, it really sets the stage beautifully for unpacking the timeless lessons Housel presents throughout his book.
It does. Let's delve into some of the most impactful ones, starting with a concept that builds directly on what we just discussed. No one's crazy, but everyone's different.
Okay, no one's crazy. I like the sound of that.
Right. It isn't a call for moral relativism in finance. Not at all. Rather, it's a powerful assertion that every single financial decision, no matter how illogical or baffling it might seem to an outsider, is rooted in the decision maker's unique experiences and their personal frame of reference.
So it shifts our perspective.
Fundamentally, from judgment to understanding.
It's a truly liberating idea, I think, because it works to dismantle the snap judgments and often harsh labels we tend to associate with financial choices, both our own and those of others.
We can be very quick to judge.
We can. If someone makes a decision that you find utterly perplexing, maybe they're terrified of investing, or they seem to be constantly spending beyond their means instead of labeling them as crazy or irresponsible, Housel suggests we pause. We should ask a more empathetic question. What in their life experience, what in this personal history, led them to view money and risk in that particular way?
That's a much better question.
Isn't it? For instance, think about someone who lived through the actual Great Depression. They might hoard cash even today in a low-interest rate environment.
And to an objective economist, that looks irrational.
Totally, because they're missing out on potential returns. But to them, the visceral memory of bank failures, of widespread joblessness, of entire families losing everything, it's so powerful.
The trauma is real.
Exactly. So liquidity, having cash on hand, feels like the ultimate undeniable security. To that individual, the seemingly irrational act of foregoing returns is in fact a deeply rational response to profound historical trauma.
Precisely. And this principle fosters crucial self-compassion too.
How so?
Because it helps us realize our own financial quirks, our own peculiar anxieties or spending habits. They aren't necessarily flaws that make us incompetent. Rather, they are often understandable products of our environment, our upbringing, our past experiences.
That's a relief.
And crucially, it cultivates a profound empathy towards others' financial choices. You might look at someone else and think, why are they taking such an extreme risk with their investments? But perhaps their background is one where they saw risk takers in their family achieve extraordinary, life-changing success, while cautious individuals maybe stagnated or were left behind.
So their definition of risk is just calibrated differently.
Exactly. Their lived experience has taught them entirely different lessons about what's rewarded and what's punished in the financial world. This principle allows us to move beyond simplistic labels of smart or stupid and embrace the nuanced complexity of human financial behavior.
It's a recognition that we all have our own unique, often invisible, filters through which we view and interact with the world of money.
And those filters determine our personal brand of rationality.
Right. And speaking of things that are often beyond our direct control, Housel shines a spotlight on luck and risk.
Yes, a big one.
He argues that success and failure in the financial world are far too often attributed solely to an individual's skill or, conversely, their stupidity.
We love those simple narratives.
We do. We love the clear-cut narrative of the self-made genius who orchestrated their own triumph through sheer brilliance, or the spectacular failure who brought about their own downfall through gross negligence.
Black and white thinking.
Totally. But Housel insists that luck and risk play an enormous, often underappreciated role in shaping financial outcomes. Far more than most people are comfortable acknowledging.
So what's frequently overlooked is just the inherently chaotic nature of the world, right? And how external forces, both positive and negative, significantly impact financial outcomes, regardless of individual effort or intelligence.
So it's not all down to us.
Not entirely. Recognizing the profound role of luck fosters a vital humility in success. It reminds us that while hard work, diligent planning, intelligent decisions are absolutely crucial, they are rarely the sole determinants of extraordinary fortune.
Right. Sometimes you just get lucky.
Many successful people were in part in the right place at the right time or benefited from an unexpected tailwind, a market boom, a technological shift, maybe even a chance encounter that opened doors.
That's not to diminish their effort, though.
No, absolutely not. But it adds a layer of objective reality to the success story. And conversely, acknowledging the pervasive role of risk fosters essential empathy in failure.
Okay, how does that work?
It helps us understand that even the most intelligent, well-researched, and well-intentioned decisions can, due to unforeseen circumstances, black swan events, or simply bad luck, they can lead to devastating outcomes.
Yeah.
It powerfully challenges the pervasive myth of the purely self-made individual, reminds us that no one operates in a vacuum. Systemic factors, or just random chance, often play a much larger hand in our fortunes than we care to admit, for both good and ill.
It's a genuinely humbling thought, isn't it?
Mm.
The idea that sometimes even the most carefully considered and statistically best decisions can still lead to bad outcomes.
Mm.
And conversely, a seemingly risky or even poorly reasoned choice might stumble into massive success
Mm.
simply because of forces beyond our control.
Yeah, the world is messy.
This insight from Housel is incredibly liberating, I find, because it allows us to detach some of the intense emotional weight we often place on financial results.
Right. It's not always about you.
Exactly. It helps us understand that not every gain is a definitive sign of our genius, and critically, not every loss is a permanent mark of our foolishness. It promotes a more resilient mindset, I think, where you can learn from outcomes without being emotionally crushed by them.
Absolutely. And this leads us to another absolutely critical concept that Housel unpacks, which is never enough.
Ah, the hedonic treadmill.
Precisely. He contends that the biggest, most persistent financial battle many people face isn't against the market or against a lack of income, but against an insatiable internal force: greed.
It's not about how much you have.
No, it's about the relentless, often subconscious desire for more. And this perpetual chase can lead individuals, even those who already possess far more wealth than they could ever reasonably need or spend in several lifetimes,
Even them?
especially them sometimes. It leads them to take incredibly irrational, often ruinous risks.
We've seen examples of that.
Oh, constantly. Think of the historical examples or even modern headlines of corporate titans or famous figures who, despite unimaginable fortunes, continued to push ethical boundaries, engage in illegal activities, or make reckless gambles, ultimately losing everything: their money, their reputation, their freedom, simply because they couldn't bring themselves to say, I have enough.
It's such a powerful, almost primal psychological trap.
Yeah.
That concept of hedonic adaptation plays a significant role here, doesn't it?
Huge role.
That human tendency to quickly get used to a new level of wealth, a new possession, a new status symbol, and then almost immediately our internal baseline shifts.
And you need the next hit.
Yeah. We set our sights on the next higher rung of material acquisition. It's an endless treadmill.
It really is.
Housel truly hammers home the critical importance of knowing when to stop, of recognizing that indefinable but crucial line.
But how do you find that line?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Right.
And he points out that this enough isn't about some universal benchmark or an objective numerical figure you could look up in a book.
Right, it's personal.
It's a deeply personal psychological threshold for satisfaction and safety. If you fail to define enough for yourself, if you're always chasing more,
That pursuit can paradoxically lead to ruin, or profound dissatisfaction, or even trapping yourself in a perpetual cycle of acquisition rather than fostering genuine well-being and contentment.
it's a constant battle against our own internal wiring.
And this raises an important question for each of us, doesn't it? How do we truly define enough for ourselves, not in abstract terms, but in a way that truly anchors our financial decisions?
So it's not about a number.
Not just a number. It's not about adhering to some external universal benchmark or an arbitrary objective number dictated by society. Instead, it demands an individual introspective process to determine a psychological threshold for satisfaction, for safety, for security, and for what truly constitutes a meaningful and fulfilling life for you. It's about understanding that the ultimate financial goal isn't to accumulate the absolute most, but to accumulate sufficiently to achieve your personal life goals, to gain peace of mind, and crucially, then to protect that.
Protect what you have.
Exactly. This profound insight truly frees you from the endless, often self-destructive, and certainly joyless competition of constantly comparing yourself to others, or chasing a moving target defined by external metrics. It shifts the focus from keeping up with the Joneses to keeping up with your own values and sense of contentment.
And while we're talking about profound, long-term thinking that challenges our intuitive grasp, let's discuss compounding works wonders, but is counterintuitive.
Ah, the magic of compounding.
Right, we've all heard the phrase, and theoretically we understand it. But Housel points out that its true, almost miraculous power is incredibly difficult for the human mind to grasp on an intuitive level.
Why is that?
Well, our brains are largely wired for linear thinking. We excel at understanding direct cause and effect in a straight line. A plus B equals C. We add, we subtract, we multiply in a linear fashion.
Okay, makes sense.
But compounding operates on an exponential scale. It's a curve that starts almost deceptively flat, barely noticeable.
And
then, after an incredibly long period, it skyrockets in a way our linear brains struggle to fully comprehend or predict intuitively.
right, like that old story about the chessboard and grains of rice.
Exactly like that. This is precisely why saving even a seemingly small amount consistently starting in your 20s can be far, far more impactful than saving a significantly larger amount when you're in your 40s or 50s.
Time is the key ingredient.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Housel vividly illustrates this with the timeless example of Warren Buffett, his immense wealth, now in the tens of billions.
he wasn't just stock picks.
Right. It isn't just due to his undeniable genius in stock picking, though that's certainly a critical component. The overwhelming majority of his fortune, the truly astronomical sums, were accumulated in his later years.
After 50, 60.
Specifically, after his 50s and 60s, thanks to decades and decades of consistent, uninterrupted compounding. He didn't just make smart investments, he started early, made reasonable investments.
And critically, he stayed invested for an incredibly, almost unprecedentedly long time.
Just letting the magic of exponential growth do its work.
It's an almost magical concept, isn't it? Yet it's entirely logical once you truly grasp its mechanics. It means that even small, consistent efforts, when applied diligently over very long periods, yield extraordinary, almost unbelievable results.
Like that tiny snowball rolling down a really long hill.
Exactly. It starts small, almost imperceptible, but with each revolution it picks up more and more snow, growing exponentially until it's an unstoppable, massive force.
It profoundly highlights the power of patience, consistency, and time as arguably your greatest allies in wealth creation.
Far more powerful than chasing high-risk, quick returns.
It underscores that the most impressive and secure financial achievements often look quite boring and uneventful in the short term.
Yeah, it requires psychological fortitude just to stay the course.
Which naturally leads us to a critical distinction Housel emphasizes. Getting wealthy versus staying wealthy.
Ah, two different games.
Completely different. He makes a powerful argument that the mindsets, the skills, even the personality traits required for these two distinct phases are fundamentally different, almost diametrically opposed, actually.
Okay, break that down. Getting wealthy requires.
Accumulating wealth often requires a willingness to take calculated risks, a strong sense of optimism, a bold vision, the ability to spot opportunities others miss, maybe a comfort level with uncertainty.
So, offense. Pushing boundaries, being opportunistic, embracing growth.
Exactly. It's an offensive game plan.
Yeah.
But keeping wealth,
That's defense.
that's defense. Housel argues, and I think this is crucial, that keeping wealth, which is arguably the harder part,
Harder than getting it.
maybe, it demands the exact opposite mindset. A healthy dose of paranoia.
Paranoia, really?
Well, maybe a healthy dose.
Mhm.
Profound humility, definitely.
Yeah.
And a deep, abiding fear of losing what you've accumulated.
Okay, so survival mode.
It's fundamentally about survival, about understanding that even the biggest gains, the most impressive fortunes, can be wiped out by one catastrophic mistake, one moment of overconfidence, or one unforeseen crisis.
Avoiding ruin.
Exactly.
Okay.
Housel makes the powerful point that avoiding ruin, simply staying in the game, is the ultimate long-term financial strategy.
So it's not just about reaching the summit.
No, it's about ensuring you don't tumble back down into the valley. That, as you can imagine, is a different kind of challenge entirely. Requires a defensive, cautious mindset rather than an offensive, aggressive one.
It truly is about recognizing and cultivating the anti-skill of not losing.
The anti-skill, I like that.
The market will always have its ups and downs. Unexpected crises will always emerge from left field. The temptation to take on too much risk, especially when things are going well, will always be present. The true skill of staying wealthy isn't about making the absolute highest returns year after year. It's about building a robust financial fortress that can withstand inevitable storms and allow you to remain invested, compounding your assets over the truly long haul.
Which might mean
It often means judiciously foregoing some potential upside, some seemingly lucrative but risky opportunities in exchange for greater safety, greater stability, and crucially, greater longevity in your financial journey.
building a system that can absorb shocks.
Exactly, without collapsing.
Okay, and speaking of things we often do for external validation but don't actually impress others,
Huh.
let's dive into the man in the car paradox
Oh, this one's great.
and the profound idea that wealth is what you don't see.
Mm-hmm.
Housel astutely observes that a common motivation for accumulating wealth, or at least, appearing wealthy,
It's a facade.
right, is to signal success and command respect from others. We often buy fancy cars, massive houses, designer clothes, expensive watches, these visible symbols of what we perceive as our achievement.
Assuming they'll earn us admiration.
Exactly. But the man in the car paradox perfectly, almost humorously, illustrates the flaw in this thinking.
Go on.
When you see someone driving a fancy, expensive car, a Ferrari, a Lamborghini, whatever. Housel argues that you are almost never truly thinking about how cool, successful, or impressive the person driving that car is.
Hmm. Okay. What are we thinking?
Instead, your mind immediately projects. You're thinking about yourself driving that car. You're imagining how you would feel, how you would look, how you would be perceived if you were behind the wheel.
Oh, wow. That's uncomfortably true.
Isn't it? Housel succinctly, almost brutally states it. No one is as impressed with your possessions as you are.
Ouch.
The expensive items we acquire, often with significant financial effort, explicitly to impress others, rarely achieve their intended effect.
They just fade into the background.
Or worse, they become objects of envy, or simply go unnoticed. They don't truly earn the admiration we seek.
And what's truly insightful is the counterintuitive follow-up. Wealth is what you don't see.
Right. Housel argues that true wealth, genuine financial power, is not found in the expensive cars or the opulent houses that are visible.
It's found where?
In the financial assets that are not spent. It's the money quietly accumulating in your investment accounts, the substantial equity in your home that isn't leveraged, the robust cash reserves in your bank account, the diversified portfolio you've built.
The invisible stuff.
Exactly. These are the invisible assets that provide future options, genuine flexibility, and profound freedom.
So the person driving the fancy car
Might, in reality, be deeply in debt, leveraging all their future income just to maintain a facade. Whereas the truly wealthy person might drive a perfectly modest car and live in a comfortable but not ostentatious home,
because their wealth is working silently.
precisely because their wealth is quietly accumulating, unseen by others. This invisible accumulation grants them genuine power, real choices, deep security that visible, showy spending simply cannot provide.
What's truly fascinating here is that stark contrast, isn't it? Between our societal perception of wealth, which is overwhelmingly rooted in what's tangible, invisible consumption,
Right, the stuff you can show off.
and the reality that true financial power lies overwhelmingly in the invisible, in the unspent, in the silent accumulation of assets.
It's a huge difference.
This stark difference raises an important question for each of us to consider. What are you truly trying to achieve with your money?
Is it external validation through conspicuous consumption?
Or is it internal freedom, genuine security, and profound peace of mind through thoughtful accumulation? The former is an exhausting and never-ending chase where you'll always need more to impress.
While the latter provides genuine security.
And optionality, and ultimately a quieter, more resilient contentment. It means shifting your focus from spending to accumulating, from outward status to inner substance.
This deep dive into the nature of true wealth brings us logically to savings, the quiet superpower.
Ah, the unsung hero.
Totally. In a world often obsessed with maximizing investment returns, chasing the next big income opportunity, or finding the hottest stock, Housel makes a powerful, yet remarkably simple and profoundly liberating case.
Which is?
The most potent tool for wealth creation, accessible to almost everyone, is not necessarily high income or stellar market returns, but simply cultivating a high savings rate.
It sounds almost too simple.
It does, but its implications are truly profound. Your ability to save, consistently and diligently, gives you a direct, immediate lever over your financial future.
Largely independent of the market.
Largely independent of market performance, economic conditions, or even your specific salary. Housel posits that you don't even need a specific grand reason to save.
Beyond just wanting freedom.
Beyond simply wanting the profound freedom and flexibility that comes with it, savings aren't just about budgeting for a rainy day.
They provide true optionality.
Exactly. The power to take a career break, to move to a new city, to start a passion project or a business, or simply to weather an unexpected crisis like a job loss or a medical emergency without falling into panic or debt.
It's a buffer, a robust buffer against life's inherent uncertainties.
And ultimately, it's the most reliable foundation for genuine peace of mind. It grants you control over your present and future.
So it really boils down to this. It's not about how much you make, but crucially about how much you keep.
That sounds almost deceptively simple, doesn't it? But it represents a profound shift in perspective.
It means that even if your income isn't stratospheric,
Right, or even if you don't have access to exclusive investment opportunities.
a disciplined and consistent approach to saving gives you immense power.
Power to choose your path, to say no to things you don't want to do or opportunities that don't align with your values.
And maybe most importantly, to say yes to exciting opportunities that might otherwise be completely out of reach.
Ultimately, a high savings rate gives you a direct lever to gain control over your most valuable, irreplaceable asset, your time.
It truly is the quiet superpower. Empowers you to live life on your own terms.
Okay, now let's address what many consider the elephant in the room when it comes to money: emotions.
Ah, yes. The messy part.
Housel introduces a brilliant concept he calls reasonable rational.
Reasonable is better than rational.
That's the idea.
Mm.
He argues that financial decisions, contrary to what many traditional economic models suggest, don't actually have to be perfectly, coldly rational to work.
Okay.
In fact, he suggests that striving for pure, emotionless rationality in finance is often a fool's errand, a self-defeating quest.
Why? Because we're human.
Precisely because humans are inherently fundamentally emotional beings. The goal, instead, is for your financial decisions to be reasonable for you, and crucially, sustainable over the long term.
Sustainable is key.
Absolutely. Emotions will inevitably get in the way of purely rational decisions. And Housel's insight is that this isn't just okay. It's an inescapable reality of human nature that we must build our financial lives around.
It's about truly acknowledging our human nature and embracing it rather than fighting against it.
Right. The relentless pursuit of perfect theoretical rationality in finance is often paralyzing.
Analysis paralysis.
Totally. If you wait for the perfect time to invest, the perfect strategy, the perfect economic conditions, you'll likely end up doing nothing at all, missing countless opportunities.
So a good plan you stick with is better than a perfect plan you abandon.
Exactly. House's profound point is that a financial decision or a financial system that you can actually stick with, one that aligns with your deeply held values, accounts for your personal biases, allows you to sleep peacefully at night.
That's exponentially more effective and powerful than a theoretically optimal decision that you abandon at the first sign of trouble because it doesn't account for your emotional limits or your unique psychological makeup.
The goal isn't to become an emotionless automaton, a perfect algorithm,
No, it's to make decisions that are reasonable enough for you to be consistent.
because consistency, as we discussed with compounding, is where the real magic happens.
Right. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it implies a fundamental rethinking of how we construct our personal financial systems and plans.
How so?
Instead of trying to force ourselves into an unnatural, purely rational mold, it suggests that building a financial system that accounts for our inherent human fallibility, our predictable emotional responses, our inevitable biases, that's infinitely more effective and sustainable.
Designing a system that works for you.
Exactly. That acknowledges your humanity rather than trying to coerce yourself into an unrealistic, purely logical state.
So focusing on habits and processes.
Robust habits, resilient processes, strong enough to withstand your own inevitable emotional fluctuations, ensuring that your long-term consistency isn't derailed by short-term sentiment, fear, or greed.
Pragmatic self-awareness leads to practical solutions.
Well put. Pragmatic self-awareness leading to practical, workable solutions.
Okay, moving from the profoundly personal to the broader global landscape. Housel also tackles the interconnected themes of history and risk with two powerful insights. Surprise. History doesn't repeat, it rhymes. And the cost of investing.
Important connections there.
He asserts that studying history is incredibly valuable, even essential, for understanding human behavior.
It teaches us timeless lessons about how people react to stress, greed, fear, opportunity.
Right. It reveals the enduring aspects of human nature that remain constant across centuries and cultures.
However,
Yeah.
and this is the critical caveat, right, where many miss the nuance.
Yes.
Specific events or precise market conditions rarely, if ever, repeat exactly.
They rhyme but don't repeat.
Exactly. They might echo similar patterns of human response to similar stimuli, but the precise circumstances, the specific triggers, the exact timelines, the ultimate outcomes are always, always unique.
Which makes prediction.
This fundamental unpredictability makes future predictions based purely on past historical data incredibly unreliable, even dangerous.
So Housel's message is clear.
Yeah.
You should expect the unexpected.
Always. Which leads directly to his profound idea of the cost of investing.
Okay, what's the cost?
Market volatility, uncertainty, periodic crises.
Yeah.
These are not glitches or bugs in the system.
They're features, not bugs.
Exactly. They are inherent, unavoidable features of the system. They are, quite simply, the price you pay for the long-term returns the market offers.
Like paying for parking.
Just like you pay a fee for parking your car or tuition for an education, you pay for market gains in the form of anxiety, doubt, periods of painful uncertainty, and the very real possibility of short-term losses.
So the powerful takeaway here for you, the listener, is that instead of trying to predict the next big market crash or precisely time the bottom of a recovery.
We should fundamentally shift our mindset
To what?
to prepare for any crash, any period of severe volatility.
It's like buying a ticket to a high-thrill roller coaster. You know instinctively there will be exhilarating ups, stomach-dropping downs, sudden twists, sharp turns.
But the ride itself, the overall experience, the journey, is the point.
Understanding that volatility and uncertainty are the admission price helps you manage expectations.
Hugely. It significantly reduces emotional overreactions during downturns.
And critically makes it far, far easier to stay invested for the long run, even when things feel completely chaotic or terrifying.
It shifts your perspective from trying to dodge every bump.
To building a vehicle resilient enough to navigate them.
Nicely put. This pragmatic view naturally flows into Housel's nuanced concept of optimism, but with room for pessimism.
The balanced view.
He suggests a powerful duality. We should cultivate a deep, abiding optimism about the long-term future of human growth and progress.
Because history shows.
History, despite its bumps and bruises, overwhelmingly shows us that humanity generally innovates, adapts, solves problems, improves over time. Overall, the trajectory of human endeavor in economic prosperity has been and likely will continue to be upward.
But there's always a but.
Right. But this long-term optimism must be thoughtfully tempered with a realistic preparedness for short-term setbacks, inevitable crises, periodic recessions.
Progress is inevitable, but it is certainly not a straight line.
It's a jagged, often circuitous path.
It's about cultivating a truly balanced perspective that is absolutely essential for successful long-term investing and prudent financial planning.
Right. Having conviction in the overall upward trend of human ingenuity, global innovation, economic growth, which has consistently overcome challenges over centuries.
While also acknowledging.
While equally acknowledging that individual journeys, market cycles, even national economies are inherently bumpy, unpredictable, subject to unforeseen shocks.
You can be optimistic the sun will rise tomorrow.
But still carry an umbrella for the possibility of a sudden rain shower.
It's not about being a doomsayer or succumbing to irrational fear.
No. It's about pragmatic anticipation and building resilience into your financial plans. A grounded, intelligent hope.
This raises an important question that you might ask yourself. How do we consciously cultivate a mindset that embraces the immense potential of long-term growth,
while realistically preparing for and accepting the inevitable bumps, dips, and outright crashes in the road?
It's a form of pragmatic optimism.
Exactly. One that doesn't ignore risks, doesn't gloss over potential pain, but instead focuses on the enduring capacity for human progress and economic resilience.
And it's this balanced perspective that allows you to invest with genuine confidence.
Right. Knowing you've mentally and financially accounted for the dips along the way, making you less likely to panic and derail your long-term plans when volatility strikes.
Okay, so circling back, why does this particular perspective from the psychology of money resonate so deeply with so many people? From, seasoned investors to those just starting their financial journey.
Well, firstly, it's incredibly accessible and refreshingly behavior-focused.
Accessible how?
Housel writes with remarkable clarity and conciseness. He completely avoids intimidating jargon. He tells compelling, often surprising anecdotes from history and current events that truly bring his points to life.
It's like listening to a wise, engaging storyteller.
Rather than trying to decipher a dense economics textbook.
Exactly.
And critically, this accessibility stems from a fundamental shift in the conversation, doesn't it?
It really does. It moves from technical financial literacy, which can feel intimidating, abstract, often out of reach for many, to the much harder but far more critical aspect of human behavior and psychology.
And this shift is incredibly empowering for you, the listener.
Absolutely. It reframes financial success not as mastering complex algorithms or predicting the future, but as mastering yourself.
It transforms finance from a dry, quantitative exercise into a profound journey of self-awareness, self-management, and understanding the human condition. It truly positions financial well-being as something you can influence directly by understanding and managing your own mind.
Rather than battling external forces you often can't control.
Exactly.
And that's precisely why the lessons Housel offers feel so timeless, so relatable, and so genuinely empowering.
They endure.
The insights he shares are enduring. They transcend specific market conditions, political climates, technological advancements, the latest investment fads. They're about fundamental human nature, which has remained remarkably consistent across millennia.
You see yourself in the stories.
You really do.
Oh.
As you read or listen to Housel's words, you, the listener, will often find yourself nodding along vigorously, recognizing your own biases, your own emotional struggles with money, the patterns Housel describes playing out in your own life or the lives of those around you.
That moment.
Yes, it's like looking into a finely polished mirror and saying, oh, so that's why I do that with money. That explains so much.
That moment of profound recognition is incredibly empowering.
Because once you truly understand the psychological pitfalls and the common behavioral biases, you feel far more equipped, far more confident to make better financial decisions.
By proactively managing your own mind rather than constantly reacting to external forces.
Exactly.
And underlying all of this, the book subtly but powerfully argues that the ultimate, truly meaningful goal of financial success should not simply be the relentless accumulation of more money for its own sake.
It's not just about getting richer.
No. Instead, it posits that the ultimate aspiration should be profound peace of mind, genuine freedom, and the invaluable ability to control one's most precious resource.
Time, control over your time, that's huge.
It teaches, with compelling evidence, that the biggest, most enduring returns often come not from making the most brilliant, high-flying investment choices, but from the quiet, unsung virtue of simply staying in the game and, above all, avoiding ruin.
Avoiding ruin again. That's key.
This ability to persevere, to endure downturns, to not get wiped out when things get tough. Housel contends this is overwhelmingly more about psychological fortitude, resilience, patience.
Than it is about raw intellectual brilliance or academic credentials.
Exactly. It's about not giving up when the world feels like it's collapsing around you.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it suggests that the true return on financial wisdom isn't measured solely in dollars and cents on a balance sheet or in the side of your portfolio.
Where is it measured then?
Rather, it's measured in the profound quality of your life, the palpable reduction of financial stress, the deep, unwavering peace of mind you gain from cultivating a healthier, more grounded relationship with money.
That raises an incredibly important question for each of us. What does financial well-being truly mean to you, beyond just the numbers?
Is it about being the richest person in the graveyard?
Or is it about living a life of purpose, freedom, peace, genuinely enabled and supported by smart, psychologically astute financial behavior?
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, what does this all mean for you, the listener, as you move forward in your own financial journey?
Well, I think it means taking a deep breath
Okay.
and realizing that your relationship with money is, at its core, less about being smart in a traditional academic sense.
And far more about being wise.
Wise. Wise about your own human nature. Wise about the often unseen emotional and historical forces that subtly shape our financial decisions. It's a profound journey from quantitative mastery to qualitative understanding.
This deep dive into the psychology of money encourages a powerful blend of humility and success, profound empathy and failure,
An unwavering long-term thinking over fleeting short-term gratification.
adaptability in the face of relentless uncertainty.
And perhaps most importantly, an honest, introspective assessment of one's own emotional landscape when it comes to financial decisions.
It's about understanding that staying in the game, enduring the inevitable storms, and critically avoiding ruin.
That is the ultimate financial strategy for long-term prosperity and peace, driven not by a high IQ.
But by profound psychological fortitude and a deep, respectful acknowledgement of the unpredictable nature of the world around us.
Well said.
As you move forward from this deep dive, maybe consider this provocative thought. If financial success is primarily about behavior, about managing your own mind, what one deeply ingrained money behavior in your own life, perhaps a habit you've never truly questioned, could you choose to observe, to understand more deeply?
And perhaps with gentle intention begin to shift, starting today.
And as you reflect on that,
Think about the subtle, often unseen ways your past experiences, your childhood upbringing, or even just the implicit stories you tell yourself about money might still be shaping your current financial choices and perceptions.
recognizing those unseen influences.
Bringing them into the light of conscious awareness, that could truly be your most valuable and transformative investment yet.